what do you see the masses on the best way that they could improve?
I would say, realize that most situations, whether they're your fault or not, when it comes to an incident, everyone has a part that they play in that situation. I think of it as, you want to think ahead about what could transpire in a situation, and then also realize that, like I said, you have a part to play in it. Like, let's say you have a driver who...
This episode is brought to you by Trophy AI, the ultimate performance coach tool for sim racers. Hello and welcome to the Chicane Podcast, where we discuss all things in the sim racing world. I'm your host, Jason Rivera, and I'm joined here by Jeff Smart and Cam Ebben, a 14-time iRacing champion and a real-life MX5 driver. How's everyone doing this week?
Well, don't I feel like the schmuckatelli in the group?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me. Happy to be here. Let's do this.
Awesome, buddy. Welcome to the show.
Hell yeah,
Only
Cam.
14 times, huh? Only 14 times.
Work in progress. We're adding to it every time. Yep.
He's like, I'm working on number 15 right now. That's just what I'm doing. So
yes, sir.
It's like patience, young Jedi. Patience.
Yeah. So Cam here, the legend, the absolute legend, is here with us today, and I'm really excited to get this one going. But do we have any announcements? I don't think so. I think we could focus on our special guest here, and I think we do have a
banger of an episode today. Yeah.
Hell yeah. We do have a sim industry update for you. I think Jeff's going to cover that.
Yeah. So super interesting news out there coming out of, I wouldn't say it's coming out of SimuCube, but it is, I guess, what we call a leak or an alleged release of a new product from SimuCube. So we have next to no details other than it's super exciting, because we got a new SimuCube base coming out. So SimuCube 3, and we'll say it's the leak of the Sport, Ultimate, and Pro. And all we know right now is we're looking at 15, 25, and 35 Newton meters of strength. So 35, that's a tank there.
Yeah, man.
So 360 watts. It comes with the control box. The size is pretty standard, and it comes with a 60-month warranty. So not much coming out for details, obviously, because this is a leak, and how it got out there, that's another story altogether. But those that are in the market for this is probably an upgrade from whatever you have, right? I can't imagine there's a lot of people that are getting into sim racing jumping straight into SimuCube. If you are, hey, good for you. But I think, when we talk with SimuCube at the expo, they identify themselves as, hey, we are the one, when somebody realizes that they're serious about getting into sim racing, we're the ones they look to as their upgrade. So if you're interested, if you're looking on starting to become in the market, it might be a time to pump the brakes a little bit and wait out until SimuCube hits the market. We don't, who knows?
We don't know when.
Could be winter. But if you're patient, this could be time to get some premier gear, top of line, and you won't be you'd be pretty much future proof for a long time with this base. Jason, anything to add?
Yeah, I will say this. There's a lot of rumors out there. Just take it with a grain of salt. Apparently, it's going to have some wireless connectivity with some wheels, or new QR system. What I would do is this: join the SimuCube 2 Discord. So that way you're up to date on news, or follow them on the social platforms. But don't forget, guys, next month very soon from now, from at the time of this recording to when it airs, we're looking at the German Expo, the Sim Racing German Expo. And they tend to announce things there. They announced the passive pedal at the American the first time, the Sim Gaming Expos, or Sim Gaming Expo, yeah. So I would just keep your eyes peeled, and like Jeff said, 100%. If there's a newer version of something, it usually is the superior product. Especially these bases are 8 years old already. So I'm really excited to see what SimuCube has under their sleeve. So thank you so much, Jeff, for providing that. Again, these are rumors, and if something comes out later, we will update you. Don't crucify us. We're a week at a time podcast. So now that that's out the way,
let's go, my man.
We have a professional driver here on the show that might not agree what we just said about bases being having to have the premium base to be fast. But before we get into that, Cam, welcome to the show. We've been wanting to get you on for quite a while now, and the expo just kind of got in the way. And then you had mentioned to us that you were racing, which is very important for you to do, is to keep racing and keep your career growing. But just tell us about yourself, man. Like, tell us about Cam Ebben. How did you get into sim racing? Tell us a little about, how'd you find it, and how did you get 14 championships, man? Damn.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So essentially what happened is it started with just a passion for racing, and I'm sure that's how it goes for pretty much anyone in sim racing. You start with an interest in the general sport of it. And that was mainly because my grandfather raced professionally for many years, right around the time that I was growing up. So I was around the track all the time. I live only an hour away from Road America, which I'm super fortunate to be that close to. So multiple visits every single year. My father raced as well. He still does. My uncle as well. Like, it's just such a family affair. So for me, growing up at the track, it became an interest of mine instantly. But, certain people start racing at a pretty young age, but, for me, it was a little later. And so there was a point where, hey, I'm a little too young to kind of be on track doing real racing, but I have this passion for it, and I want a way to be able to prepare myself when that day comes, right? And so for that regard, like, it was basically then sim racing caught my interest, iRacing specifically, and I joined when I was 11 years old. Not sure if I think that might be a little too young to be actually on the game technically, but we'll see. I know you had Nim on the podcast, but let's hope
Nim, tune out now, buddy.
Right.
Yeah. Nim is watching. He's like, huh?
Yeah. So I started when I was 11 because it was a little too early to get into go-karts or any sort of like real life stuff. So it was a way to kind of learn how to drive and learn racecraft and understand racing lines. And I think any of the success that I had, especially just starting out in karting, I had to test that all to my years spent on sim racing leading up to that. Because I didn't start karting until I was 15. And I was on iRacing since I was 11. And in that time frame, I learned so much about just racing in general. Like, I feel like I would have been a fish out of water if I jumped straight into a go-kart with no knowledge of even like racing lines, racecraft, braking zones, apexes, like anything like that. That was all super helpful to learn in the years leading up to getting into my first real race. So yeah.
That is, this is my favorite part of the show. And I think Jeff can definitely agree, is listening to stories like this. A lot of kids growing up, I want to respond to that, is they have this misconception that you need to grow into racing or you need to grow up, but you're telling me that you started on a sim and then you moved over to racing. I know racing is in your bloodline though. That does carry some racing spirit in you. But I have one follow-on question to this. What made you choose iRacing?
Well, you're looking at the time frame of like 2014, 2015, and I just don't really feel like there was many other, sims that were really jumping forward at that time. And I could be mistaken, but at least for whatever reason, I had seen different maybe YouTube videos. I can't really remember at the time, but just like an amount of iRacing content was kind of getting tossed at me at that kind of young age. I believe I knew somebody at the time, like an older kind of mentor figure to me at the time, had an iRacing account, and that was kind of being something that was talked about when him and I had conversations. And so it just, for whatever reason, it was just what was presented to me at that age. And I personally believe it's still the best like quality of like racing, and mainly that's because of the amount of people on the service. You can go into pretty much any race at any time and have someone to race in. Or like the Mazda MX5, my specialty series, right? Like probably 100 entries minimum.
Oh, dude.
Sometimes 400,
the
500.
MX5 is always blowing up with people.
Yep,
it doesn't matter
exactly.
what time of day, where. I don't know how to drive the MS5 right at all. I struggle with this car.
A lot of people don't believe it.
Right. Yeah. But hey, that was basically what kind of drew me into iRacing, is just the amount of users on the service and knowing that you could get an authentic racing experience. Some of the endorsements from the real life pros at the time also added to that. And seeing, and
it was presented to you,
Totally.
You saw an opportunity like, hey, I'm 11 years old. I can't get into karts. So how do I do this? This is what
Next
I
best
want to
thing.
do.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
right there is what I'm trying to allude to, is like, hey, if whoever's watching this episode, if you have dreams, we have living proof right here on the show about someone that had dreams of racing, and yeah, he was too young to do it, but you know he used the sim to kind of develop the skill, and then just laid it on track. It's amazing. Amazing story.
It's a cool story.
Amazing.
Hey, Cam, I got a question for you. Can you talk to me about when you're 11 years old? What is your, we'll use the term air quotes, rig, because you're 11, and then talk to me about your progression to what it is today.
So my first rig, if you want to call it that, was a Logitech Wingman. It's a red Logitech wheel from like early 2000s, I think. Just bolted onto the desk, and then the pedals that came with it were just a gas and a brake, super flimsy plastic pedals. I had that set up in my dining room, and then I had the laptop that I was racing on. I had it propped on top of a box and then pushed up against like a vase paperweight thing to like keep it in place, kind of. Super minimal. I actually raced on a laptop.
That's awesome.
I raced on that same laptop until 2019, and then I actually got a PC. But the desk rig still stayed. I eventually upgraded to a G27. But if you ever take a look at my social media, it's something that I make sure that people know is like, this is what I've been using up until this point, and it's very surprising to certain people because, like you alluded to, the championships I've been able to win and the kind of the stature I've been able to build on iRacing, it's all been done on a desk rig. So progression wise, the equipment hasn't gone, super out of touch with just the desk rig, but I do want to throw out there that I have partnered with VRS, who are basically overhauling all of my sim equipment.
Okay.
So very, very shortly, I will
shout out to VRS.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
I'll be officially removed from the desk racing, and there's nothing wrong with that, obviously, but in my opinion, getting a chance to go for some more, realistic and more immersive equipment, I think will, not only help me as a driver, but also just improve my experience, because certain things on the Logitech, you don't have the same feel. Like, I think a load cell brake pedal would be amazing, because on the Logitech, it's just the potentiometer or whatever, that is just basically how far you push it, not pressure related.
Yeah.
So it's tough to be consistent sometimes. We were talking before the show about racing the P Cup. Like, I usually don't dabble in that because it's rough to try to master, because the braking on that is super finicky. And
it's
so
very unforgiving, that P Cup.
Yeah, it's tough to try to really find that limit when I'm.
But honestly,
really
bro, I just want to say this: you kind of earned, in my opinion, you kind of earned the right to upgrade, if you may, because these are things you can actually use, and you understand fundamental. You're a 14-time world champion on a Logitech. Let
that sink in.
That makes me feel bad.
You don't need good, expensive gear to drive fast.
You don't need expensive stuff. Here. This is living proof right here on the show.
I think at the end of the day, in my opinion, there's certain equipment that I think is beneficial to have, because from a consistency standpoint, like if you have a load cell brake, it's something I'm very eager to try, because you can really pinpoint, hey, this is the exact amount of pressure that I applied. It's easy to replicate. But at the end of the day, I think it's just really what you mesh with the most and what you're able to really just become accustomed with. And I think really anything is possible from there, right? Like, maybe if you have a bad PC and you have like low frame rate, it's hard to race and you like lagging out all the time. That's different. But I think for the most part, like, you hear stories, a lot of the people on the oval side, like in the esports Coca-Cola NASCAR series, like a lot of them are still on Logitechs. It's just a weird, type of thing where if it's what you're accustomed to and you're able to make the most out of your time on the sim and really get the most out of your time on track, honestly, when you're playing iRacing. And if that's with a Logitech or if that's with a direct drive wheel, like, so be it. But I think it's really what you mesh with the most and what you become accustomed with, and whether you want to upgrade and try to see if you can accustom with something else even more or not. I think that's what it really comes down to at the end of the day. It's just what you like and how comfortable you feel using your equipment.
I would like to follow up with you when you do get the gear, because I'm always nervous about adding gear to the rig, because I feel like it messes with my muscle memory, right? Because when you get accustomed to something for so long and you change, this happened to us at the expo. We went to the expo.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can drive the hell out of this car. I drove this car for 24 hours in Nürburgring. And then you go over there and the pedals are not set correctly, or they're not set to my standard, and it made me, it was punishing basically, and then
Humbling too. You're like, I'm in like $150,000 rig and
yeah, it was
not even
150K
touching,
setup, dude.
lap
It's
times that are
insane.
normal in my own rig. That's,
Right.
an eighth of that price or a tenth of that price.
Right. Yeah, I think for sure, without a doubt, there'll be a learning curve. It'll be something new to adjust to. Just the feeling in my hands of having direct drive versus just the I believe it's belt driven or gear driven. The Logitech
Gear
227
driven.
gear driven.
Mhm.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So like feeling that difference, and of course the different pedals. I think there's a learning curve to be had. Or sitting in a GT cockpit rig versus an office chair that rolls when I hit the brakes sometimes, right? Like, I think there'll be a learning curve for sure, but I'd like to imagine that, the sky's the limit, from here on out. And so
Of
that's what
course.
I'm looking
No,
for.
You'll
yeah,
be all right, buddy. You'll
you can
figure that
adjust.
out.
You race real cars now. This is very different. You
Hmm.
you have 2 points of data. It's not one. So I tell you what, it will make the experience a lot more fun because the immersion is going to strike you in a way that it might convince you a little further that you're in your car when you're racing. So I'm excited for you. Can't wait to hear an update on that. But we'll move on to the next. I know the next question. I know you race MX5. Is that the only class that you race, or is that the most? Is that what class do you race the most? Is it just MX5?
Yep. So currently I race in the Spec MX5 class in the Sports Car Club of America. It's technically an amateur level league, throughout the United States. And so that is the newest class added to the SECA. It's got, 6-figure corporate backing from Mazda corporate.
Wow.
And they use it as kind of the scouting grounds, to scout up and coming talent so they can offer them scholarships. And basically at the end of each year, they invite, some of the top young talent that drives a Mazda and gives them a chance to compete for a scholarship to then move into the professional MX5 Cup, ran through IMSA. It's the iRacing MX5 car, that MX5. And so, a lot of the people that race in this class, that's all kind of what we're working towards, is trying to get a scholarship or move into that pro level and really start to get that jump that our career needs, right, to continue to progress up the ranks. So it's a super competitive class, lots of backing from Mazda. And they use it to kind of scout up and coming talent. And so, for me, it's been, Mazda through and through. I started before that. I ran Spec Miata, which is an older version of the MX5. And I did that for a couple of years. That's what I started car racing with, and then moved into Spec MX5 2 years ago. So I've been, kind of at that amateur level for the time being, but, next year I have my sights set. I'm moving into the IMSA level and, starting my pro racing career from there. But yeah, it's only been pretty
Hell
much
yeah.
Mazda, MX5s or different variants of that car. And on top of that, also in a Miata, I recently was picked up by a local Champ Car endurance racing team. Shout out to my friends over at Parts Badger. They field 2 cars in the Champ Car endurance series. And they saw what I was doing over on my side of things and, wanted me to be a part of their program as a fellow Wisconsinite and, help bring them some results. So we had our first
Awesome.
race out at Mid-Ohio 2 weeks ago, and then we have one at Road America about a month from now. So that's another opportunity to kind of take on some endurance racing stuff versus sprint racing, where the races are only like 30 minutes instead of what I've just decided to start doing now, which are like 8 hours with the Champ Car team. So it's definitely a new challenge, but another opportunity. But again, we do drive a Mazda MX-5 in that as well, so I can't seem to get away from the Mazdas at this point.
That's a lot of Mazda driving.
Yeah, exactly.
That's still
Dude,
badass though. I mean,
That
Yeah,
is
yeah.
it's
so
just
awesome, man.
8-hour rip is
Yep.
just, whew, that's pretty cool. Hey, so follow on to, you talked to us about some of your racing experience. What's your favorite so far in your young career? What's your favorite memory of racing real cars? And talk to me about, some of your favorite memories racing, sim racing. You got a lot of experience with the 14 champions. Give me 2 of your favorite memories.
So favorite memory of real racing, I would say it for some people would be like a race win, but for me, this was a really symbolic pole position that I got. It was simultaneously the track record in Spec Miata at Road America, and it's still standing today. And it goes back many years to what I mentioned, where I was basically at Road America since I was 0 years old. There was a picture of me as like an infant sitting on my dad's like race car hood, like laying there, and they snapped a photo of me. Like
Awesome.
That's
it has
badass.
been like my home away from home. And I've grown up watching, all my family members, do battle on this racetrack. My grandpa, like I said, raced professionally, won national championships with SECA. Also, it's just like Road America and being, part of the environment growing up there at the racetrack has been so, pivotal in my growth and just my interest in racing. Like I basically credit it to like all of my passion. And so 2 years ago at an event called the June Sprints, it's basically the biggest amateur race of the year aside from our national championship race. And so at that event, which there was roughly 60 drivers in my class, in the Spec Miata class, I got the pole position there. And it was just to also set the track record, was still standing today, but it was almost just like,
okay,
it was
no
just
big
something
deal.
Yeah, it was something just about it, getting that pole position in front of the home crowd, in front of all my family members, and also just knowing that I once was on the other side of the fence watching in the bleachers, for hours on end every day, just one day hoping I could be out there racing on the real track. And to start on pole position for that race, it's a
dream come true, basically.
Literally, yeah. You're just leading this field of 60 people out on to the green flag, and there was no feeling like it. So for me, like,
awesome.
None of my wins are up there too. The wins that I've gotten are definitely good memories, but like none of them really packed the punch like in my heart that pole position did. So I don't know. That was probably my favorite memory in real life racing, especially like being on track like as a driver. On the sim racing side, there's quite a few. I'll say in 2024, I won the 24 Hours of Daytona. It was the top split race in the 4th time slot, I believe, with my friends over at Parallel Racing Group. Shout out to them. We were able to get it done in the Lamborghini in the GT3 class. And so I'd say that was a bit of a highlight, if I'm being honest. Man. But
that's awesome.
But then also that first time I hit 10K iRating, when you
10K iRating.
Yep.
we're gonna get into that one very soon.
So I'd say either winning the 24 or when I first hit 10K iRating, because the moment that your iRating goes from 4 digits to 5
like
digits,
it's nothing. Like 10K, yeah,
no big deal.
I love it.
It was a crazy feeling, because you look at you're sitting there looking at the UI and it still says 9992 or whatever it was at the time, and then you're just waiting for it to update, and then the results come in and you see it switches to 5 digits, and I don't know, it was just a crazy feeling, because as you can imagine, lots of hard work went into that. Honestly, I'd say it's up there for the sim racing moment between winning the 24 and hitting 10K. Tough to say, but I don't know, I'd say the 10K was more fruitful, right? You spend months like grinding, getting it up to that, as anyone does, right? And so just to see it, come true, and to see, that I don't know, it just seems like it just kind of taken, my sim racing success to like the next level, honestly, just to have that kind of extra stat added to my name. So yeah.
Cam, I got to follow on to the question. So
okay.
After you cross the line for the Daytona, 24 Hours at Daytona with your team, I assume you're in your house. Everybody's geographically separated from your team.
Mm-hmm.
What happens in your house? What happens to you? Do you get up and you're like running around the house being like a lunatic? Or do you be like, yeah, I'm pretty tired, I'm going to go to bed? Like, what is that? I know what it would be for me. The latter,
Here it comes.
I was pretty tired. I finished the race, which meant I was up pretty early, and then we basically had a system where one person had to at least be like on the spotter's box when someone else was in the car. So like I think I was already on a couple hours before that, so maybe like 7 a.m. I was on, and then I did like the graveyard stint from like 2 a.m. to 4. So I was pretty beat. But to finish the race was awesome, to cross the line and be the one to really get us there to the finish, and then doing some donuts. And honestly, like first priority after that was taking screenshots so we could post on socials. Was kind of the first thing. And then I definitely went downstairs, I think, and just let the family know. I believe they were up at the time, and just be like, hey, made this happen. I was keeping them posted, throughout the course of the night and throughout the course of the event. But we had been comfortably P1 for like most of the second half of the race, so it was kind of
big deal
managing it from there. But Yeah. So I don't know. And then I definitely went back to bed, but it was
He's like, I'm going to sleep. Y'all be
it was
good.
definitely a mixture of celebrating it with the boys that were still awake, if any of them, I don't remember, and then letting the family know and taking some screenshots and then hitting the sheets was kind of the turn of events there. But yeah, what about you? You said you knew what your answer would be. I'm curious.
Dude, I mean, I had to take my shirt off, done flip, flipping
Yep,
around,
okay.
and then I'd have told the wife, and she'd be like, "That's great, take the trash out."
Yeah.
It's like
That's
I would have
funny.
found like a swimming pool somewhere and just dive in it with,
Yeah,
the,
right.
with the suit on, do a Danny Ricardo or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but you have to remember it was January in Wisconsin, so it was
It
probably
don't matter, bro.
It don't
We
matter,
won the
bro.
race.
The water's frozen, man.
It don't matter. We're getting hurt then.
Yeah, fair enough.
Touche.
Oh my God. So wow, this is insane. I mean, our next question, right? It kind of backs it up a little bit, right? When you started at 11 years old racing on the simulator, when did you realize that, hey, I'm actually competitive. I'm good enough to race with the big boys? And when did you realize that as your during your iRacing career?
Yeah, it came much later than when I first started. I
Okay.
really just did hosteds, all like the most insane combinations of like hosted races. I'd think of just the most obscure things. I'd race like the Volkswagen Jetta against the Lotus 79 at like a figure eight track or something. Like I loved doing hosted races, like hosting and just like
You're just
coming
having
up with the
fun,
most.
dude.
Yeah. So like I don't even
That's
think I
awesome.
got out of rookies for the first year just because I didn't even do officials maybe. And then I surrounded myself with people that weren't really trying to get the most out of the sim. I'll start with that, right? So naturally, you don't take it as seriously, and
Bro, you were 11.
correct, yeah.
Let's cut you some slack
yeah,
here.
yeah. And so it was a weird thing with like my younger self. Like I would almost try to be like low splits on purpose. So I didn't get an actual like great read on myself for a little while until I basically, let me think here. Well, to put it into perspective, I would like if I happened to get into like a race that wasn't like bottom split, I would usually just leave to like keep myself at the bottom split. This was like when I was like 12 or 13 now. I don't know. It was just weird. Like, I don't think I was afraid of competition, but maybe I just wanted to like pad the stats up. I don't really know. Like, trying to just race in those really low splits. Well, then what ended up happening is eventually, I want to say, probably 4 years into iRacing, then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna actually try to be like good at the like good and actually try to excel in the sim, right? Because hosteds or low split races, whatever, I was still learning a lot about racing and racecraft and racing lines, and so like the lessons I was learning were very applicable to real life stuff. But now I wanted to actually be someone that was respectable on the sim, not like bottom split feeder, right? So from there, it was like late 2018 ish. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna race. I'm going to get up to top split if possible, but at least I'm just going to keep racing. And if I go down, if I go up, whatever, I'm just going to race and learn and put myself up against, the best people that I possibly can be put against, whether that's just the way the splits get ranked or I hop in a hosted race with a better driver or something, just to learn and try to become the best that I can. And so over time, it was really just surrounding myself with faster people, racing repetitively, and then finally learning in competitive splits how to become a better driver. And so I would say early 2019, I started going like 4K, 5K ish. And so from there, it was essentially realizing, hey, I can start winning races. I'm putting
So
together
whoa,
results.
back
Yeah, go
back
ahead.
up just a
Yeah.
little bit. You said you went up to 5K.
Just glazed over that.
You know how
fact.
hard it is. I'm struggling to get up to 3K, or let alone 2K. I mean, that's still, wow.
He's just like click.
There was
He's like, oh yeah,
click.
5K.
Yeah. There was
Keep going.
there's
We're just in
Keep
awe.
going. I'm
yeah.
sorry,
Keep
man.
going.
I'm just
No, no
reacting.
worries,
I'm
no
reacting
worries,
to what
yeah.
I'm hearing right now.
Yeah, there was a time frame where I really started locking in, if you will, and just racing quite a bit after school or on a snow day or what have you, right? And I was doing a lot of racing, and mainly was focusing on the MX5 at that time, and it just started meshing with me, and it started taking off. And I don't know, something about just the way that car behaves and the way that I was able to mesh with it. It was great, and along the way, I was just able to kind of skyrocket. I remember early 2019, there was a week of the production car challenge at a very random road course called is the east version of the Pocono like track. They have like a road course in the infield
Oh
there.
wow. Yeah.
I was like randomly super good there. They've like never raced there. Like it's been like 6 years now. The series like it has never come back. But I was just grinding that week, I remember, and I went I think like 3,000 up to 4,000 in just that one week. And then from there it was like
You
working
must have
into
been killing
5,000.
it, dude.
Yeah,
If it
that
was like that.
something
You
about that
must have been
track. I don't know.
absolutely killing it.
Yeah. And then I kind of plateaued off at like 5K because until like I mentioned late 2019, I was just on a laptop. And so what would end up happening sometimes is terrible screen freezes because this is like a pretty bad laptop that had a really hard time running iRacing. And so maybe I'd do like 10 races really well or win 5 races or something. But then the next race, I've got a screen freeze and then I crash into a wall because I can't see anything, right? And it was a couple of like those like uncontrollable things, or like sometimes when this would be like when I was younger, but like my parents would have like a limit on the Wi-Fi and I'd be in a race and then it would hit midnight in the middle of the race and it would cut me off.
Oh no.
So like, you know, just some like kind of random
disconnected.
like
Somebody just went
yeah. So just like kind of random like lagging out or you know screen freezing. And so I ended up kind of being limited in that regard. I'd kind of be around like 5K, high 4Ks. And then for Christmas 2019, I got a PC for the first time, and I was getting more than like 30 frames in a race. It was amazing. I could see things while driving. And
you see, Jeff, we have it too well, bro. We got it too good over here.
That's my reason why I'm not fast, is I have too high a frame rate.
It's too smooth, bro.
Too smooth.
It's too smooth.
Right. Yeah, so then once I got the PC, it really started to mesh. I knew I could actually do races without, having a screen freeze. I was loading into races really fast. Everything was just, being much smoother on me. So from there, I got to about 8,000 iRating. This was 2020. And then stayed like 7K, 8K range for a while. And then I had kind of like plateaued like 8K, 7K, 6K. Like I was kind of in a interesting headspace where like I had raced quite a bit, but maybe wouldn't make the best decisions. And, honestly, there's something to be said about racing like too much, honestly. And sometimes stuff gets in your head or you build bad habits. And so I was kind of just stuck like in this mental block of like 6 to 8K iRating, which is still like amazing, obviously, like comparatively. But something about like, I knew I wanted to do more, but I don't know. In my head, in my mind, something just wasn't letting me like be the person that was, smart enough with decision making, not getting themselves into crashes, not self-spinning, not blowing their engine. Like something in my mind just was stopping me from doing that. So I ended up kind of like taking a bit of like a step back, like a mental cleanse, if you will. And that was at the same time that like real life racing was really starting to pick up. I was traveling more, was becoming more successful, devoting more time to that. And so then you loop around to 2023 is kind of where we pick up, and I'm about 6.5K at the time. And I kind of get back into like, I don't know, I get back into iRacing, but I'm a little bit differently approaching it this time and just smarter decisions and realizing, sometimes one move isn't worth it at this spot. There's many laps to go. Something just clicked differently when I came back in 2023. And it kind of just overhauled my existence on the sim. And then I was just making better decisions, being way more consistent. It's probably like, this is kind of the range where I took it from, 8K to 10K, right? It was just a change in mindset. And I think that's the thing for a lot of people is mindset things, because, if you think about things a certain way and it's to the detriment of yourself, you put yourself in bad situations, or you just don't, think through greater picture on certain scenarios, it can really limit you. So for me, it was kind of coming to terms with what I had kind of done wrong as a driver in the past, and kind of realizing what I needed to do differently if I wanted to kind of take off from there. So 2023 came back in September at about 6.5K, and mid-November I was 10K. And
Damn, so that's a hell of a jump, dude.
That's
Crazy.
It was a quick journey. It was a lot of racing. Don't get me wrong, but just I probably raced the same amount several years back, but it was just like completely different approaches to the racing. And I think that's what makes a difference for people that really end up wanting to become, a high iRating driver, really better themselves, is really perfecting the mental side of iRacing. If you want to be kind of on that elite level, if you will, or you want to be kind
You
of
just covered our next question actually with that. We were just going to ask you. That is freaking awesome. Want to have a live coach available on demand? With Trophy AI, you'll be able to practice with Manso AI at your convenience. A real-time coach in your headphones to navigate and guide you through the track, helping you achieve race pace. This tool is awesome as it provides full brake, throttle, and steering telemetry on screen with a live review getting you ready for your next big race. Check links to Trophy AI in the description and also use Chicane12 in all caps for a 12% discount. And I do agree with you about accepting your own stuff. Like, you have to come to terms with, you may have made the wrong decision and you have to accept it and learn from it. So I just want to say this, man. 11 years old to the age you're at now, dude, you had a hell of a mindset, for that age. A very mature mindset. I mean, it's okay to be 11 and have fun on a sim.
Yeah.
But then you took it to a next level, like, very quickly. I just have one follow-on question with that story. You mentioned 2020. Was there any differences? I wasn't on iRacing in 2020. Was there, what happened in 2020? You had the pandemic and all this stuff. It may or may not have been relevant to you because you had such a high iRating, but I know the service probably saw an influx of people coming in. Is there anything different that happened in 2020 during your, career on iRacing?
Like you said, just an influx of new members and just the whole simulator just getting, a whole new level of prosperity and popularity.
Patches.
Yeah. Totally. I'd say, there weren't many differences as far as, they didn't really end up changing anything. Just a lot more people got onto the service. Before COVID, I would say maybe like 100,000, 200,000 members on the service. Now I think they're over 1 million members. I think the account numbers go up to like 1.1 million or something. There's, it's just, if you look at it, there's graphs of it, like the user base before, and then like when COVID hits and, in 2020, just like straight up super big takeoff. And I think that's where a lot of people had kind of learned about iRacing because, you have real life drivers that are, not able to race in real life. So they, their series puts on an iRacing league. You had the NASCAR one, you had the IndyCar one. I think there was a V8 supercar one. You got, F1 drivers who maybe don't have like a official esports series. I don't know. But like, as far as like they had real life drivers racing on a sim, I don't know if that really happened, but I just know like I witnessed, F1 drivers hopping on iRacing just to play the sim and just to race when they couldn't in real life. And so it's just so much publicity and people can't be on a real racetrack, and it was a way to kind of tickle that fancy, if you will, right? Yeah. So it did,
and that's where the gear came from too. The gear came from those drivers that could not make it on track, and we still had gear here and there, but it kind of took off after that.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of joining during COVID. I remember watching Travis Pastrana during the COVID doing. He was a goofball. He's in his helmet, his whole racing suit.
I love Travis, man.
He's sitting there racing at his desk, shifting gears on a screen. I was like, what is he doing? A couple Google. I'm like, holy shit. And that's how I got into it. Yeah. So I'm part of that little tick up in 2020.
Okay.
So you talked a little bit about, hey, decision making is kind of what helped you a lot. But if you were to kind of give one tip to, or what you see the vast majority of people of how they could improve, or tip for their iRating, or just be a better racer in general, being that, you are at, a top half of 1% of the top, what do you see the masses on the best way that they could improve?
I would say, realize that most situations, whether they're your fault or not, when it comes to an incident, everyone has a part that they play in that situation. I think of it as, you want to think ahead about what could transpire in a situation, and then also realize that, like I said, you have a part to play in it. Like, let's say you have a driver who's maybe been looking a little risky. They're like 4/10 back on you. You don't think they're gonna dive in the next corner, so you leave it open, right? Even though they've been a little risky, you'll open up the corner. You'll leave the inside open, and of course they lunge it in and they crash you, right? It's their fault. They're the ones in the wrong for the incident, but you could have also maybe done something to like prevent that, or at least not put yourself in that position to be wrecked. Just covering off the inside, realizing, hey, it really just comes down to thinking in the moment, right? Like, hey, this person is looking a little bit sus. They've been a little dodgy. Maybe I'm not going to leave the inside open, right? Like, sure, they're at fault for causing the crash, but at the end of the day, like, once the race is over, what does yelling at them in voice chat really do? Like, you're DNF'd, you know what I mean? So
you're sitting in the pits. Yeah.
Right. So there's certain things that you learn. And, for me, I think, part of it is like, 100%, this is the parameters that I sign up for being at this iRating level. But like, for me, like, it's pretty much, I have to win to gain any iRating points. So like, if I get second, I lose, right? So
that's wild.
There's a lot of thinking through scenarios of like, okay, how can I try to defend this win the best I can, or how can I like minimize the losses? Like, I think when you have at a certain level, when you have a lot more on the line, or at least when there's a lot more to lose, you think through things a lot more advanced, or you think of them a lot more ahead. Like, realizing, hey, if I don't defend here, he might try to go for the move, but also it's lap 2. If I defend too hard, everyone catches us. Maybe I'll let this person lead, follow them for a bit, let us pull away, and then go for the win later on. You can think about those things a little differently. And I'm not saying high iRating people are the only people who can think that way, but that is an advice that I would say a lot of high iRating people share. And that's something that they understand. And that is something that I would like to pass on to people that want to know how they can improve themselves. Because, you look at people who just always blame everyone else. And sure, I think Nim might have touched on this too a little bit.
He did. Did you watch the show? You watched the?
I did. Yeah. Of course I did. What? Yeah.
Thank you. Hell yeah. We got a fan here, man. That's what's up, man.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's what I was about to tell you. You mentioned something very similar to what he did and to what he said. And it makes sense.
Jason and Cam, it's interesting, Cam, that you brought this up, because that takes no practice. That doesn't take any time. It's just a mental decision that you make. Hey, I don't need to drive this car past my ability level. Hey, I don't need to dive bomb this guy. I just need, for a month, I need to make better decisions on just racing.
Mm-hmm. And it always usually works out, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, you go ahead. I was about done.
Yeah. I was gonna like follow up with you, Jeff, like saying it makes sense, because 9 times out of 10, the times that I let the reckless guy that's doing reckless things, not necessarily let him take the position, but not put myself in a position where I can crash him or we can get into a wreck. And sometimes they pass me, and a lap or 5 laps later, I see him on the side of the road. Like, I'm like, yeah, things happen sometimes. That happened to us in the 24-hour race that we did. There was 2 guys, and they were doing a lot of crazy things on the Nords, and we didn't let up. And if we would have let up, we probably would have, had a chance to evade what happened in front of us, and we crashed them because it was just too close. So, but it's also not an easy feat either. It's not that it's time consuming, but in my opinion, it's not easy to be disciplined that way, because I don't know. I think that a lot of us want to go in there and we want to win, and we want to win. We want to be a high iRating, because if I can race with other, higher rating people, then I feel a lot more, I feel safer around them, because I know that they struggled to get there just as I struggled to get there. And I know that they care about their iRating. They're not going to do anything stupid, even though they do stupid things sometimes. But it's, I agree with you, Cam, though. I'm not saying I don't. I agree with you. I just think that that is something that you have to prepare your brain for, because when you're behind the wheel and you're a few laps in and, you're pushing, um, and you're looking at deltas and all this stuff, sometimes you're like, man, if I could push a little harder here. And then that little push harder gets you next to the other guy, and then things happen, it's just race incidents. But the 10K driver here, the 14th time champion. I, lots of respect to you. It's hard, man. I have a friend that's a big shout out to Jean. He's part of our SRC team, and he is that guy that 5,000 iRating goes down to 4,000, goes up to 45, goes down to 4,000, and if he's not on the pole, it's 100 points away from him every time. Or any little incident that he get into is like, oh yeah, I lost 150 iRating, and I'm like, damn, that's a lot. Yeah.
Well, that's wild. What he said. Hey, if I don't win,
if you don't win,
iRating goes down.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty rare to gain for second place. Granted, I'm not racing necessarily in like the humongous GT3 level SOF races or things where like the strength of field is like 6,000, but even like in still like it'll be 4,000 SOF races or high 3,000 into 5,000 SOF in MX5 stuff mainly, and so it's pretty rare to gain for second place just at the level where I'm at. Maybe if the person that wins is pretty close to my iRating, because I believe in the kind of the back end of like the ELO system, if the algorithm presumes that the driver I'm racing with, or the driver that beats me, right, like if they're pretty close to my iRating level, the sim obviously assumes that we're pretty close on skill level, and so therefore if they assume that that we're pretty close on skill level, they are a little more forgiving versus like if I lose to someone who is like I mean 1,200, let's say I lose to someone who's 1,200 iRating, and so on the back end of there where
you should not be losing to a 1,200 is what the system says.
Right, yeah, because it basically, predicts me going into the race as like major overdog just based on iRating points at least, right? This 1,200 driver could be insane, but, as far as the sim is concerned, since my iRating is, 10,000 and there's this 1,000, I should be like a major overdog. So to lose that is when there's a loss. And so just generally in the races that I'm in, most of the people that, if I lose to them, if I come in second place, if I crash, right, like usually I'm a significant enough of an overdog in terms of how the sim is kind of perceiving it, that, yeah, I'll lose for a second place finish. So, but like I said, it's not something I'm like, oh my gosh, my life is terrible. I completely... I signed up for this. I signed up for this, right? Like, it's just I guess it's the risk that I take from doing races, but it's something that I completely understand as well. It's like, hey, this is what I've worked towards, and this is kind of part of it now. I won't say it's a consequence, but it's at least a side effect of like, hey, I've gotten to this level, and if I want to keep growing, I gotta win now.
That's how you have to. Yeah, you gotta be a winner. Yes,
but it's what I signed up for. Getting to the iRating that I'm at, I knew it when I was working towards it. I knew that it was something that was going to become, part of it as a side effect, would be, have to win more often than not. And so not complaining about it, just saying how it is. And so, yeah, but like, to your point, like it has led, to me personally, learning a lot about how to approach situations better. And I think it applies to really anybody, because in my opinion, you could be maybe in a lower split, not the top split, but if you put yourself in better positions, better situations, stay out of trouble. It sounds cliche, but you'll probably advance up the ranks. And then, you get into a top split race eventually, or at least a better matched race. And so you're at a race where you're maybe one of the lower cars in the split, but, you've learned a lot about racecraft. You're able to race with better drivers and finish these races. And so you're getting reps, maybe trailing at first, trailing behind these faster drivers, and just learning over time. And that was the big thing for me to become proficient on the sim was, realizing at first I'm not going to be the greatest of all time, and I'm still not, but I'm just saying, like, at the time,
go stop
pretty close to it though.
at the time, like I'm not gonna be the GOAT. I'm not the GOAT right now. Like but there's people out here that are better than me at this race, at this track, or in this car, or whatever, right? Like I'm going to try my best to learn from them, hang with them if I can. And maybe at first, someone who was beating you every race, you start to kind of reel them in, you start to figure things out, and then maybe by the end of that week or something, you can hang with them for a race, and you learn a lot from.
Oh,
In my opinion,
100%.
practical race driving is the most beneficial, in my opinion. I close practice is good too, like private practice, but I think you learn the most from a race scenario because mindset is different because it's like heat of the moment, but also it's much more competitive. You have the environment
Hmm.
of the race, and you're learning how to race alongside people, how to follow, and then
And
you get,
everybody wants to win,
yep, and then
everybody has a goal. Yeah.
yep, and then you can also get exposed. Exposed to faster drivers depending on your split. But over time, you'll start to be doing these races with people and learning from faster drivers, and you'll become the better driver that you strive to be, in my opinion. And that's something I stand by, right? Like I do more official races than most of the people on the service, or at least more than the average person. But I attest that to a lot. A lot of what I learned, I attest to that, right? Like doing, a certain amount of official races and just being involved and doing races, even if there's some risk that I take on, I've at this point pretty much been in like every type of race scenario, race situation. And I've learned how to attack, side by side into this corner, three wide up this straightaway, who's going to come out on top into this first braking zone. Like being involved in those race scenarios and really learning the racecraft is something that comes with racing a lot. And I think, yeah, you learn from the people around you as well. It's just all around a learning experience, getting those reps in and doing lots of races.
I agree. We've preached about this on the show many times about league racing, because league racing, um, you're always racing with these high 9Ks, 8Ks, 7Ks. So you get to follow them and see what they're doing, and it kind of advances that a little. But I have been privileged enough to be in the top split, and I'm the lowest in the field. So if I lose the race, it's not that big of a deal, because
Yep.
the service won't punish me as hard as it will for the other guys that have the higher iRating. Um, Not yet. When I get there, I'll be punished too.
Patience,
But
young Jedi.
yeah. All right, who's got the next one?
Cam, I got the one. Cam, so I'm gonna switch gears a little bit into real life racing. Tell us how you got into real racing, but then also tell us, has sim racing or iRacing helped you out, or does it give you bad habits? Does it keep you sharp? Something like that.
So this is something that I love to talk about, for like, sim racing to real racing. I think, it depends what you want to get out of it. Um, but I'll talk about that in a second. How I got started in real racing, like I mentioned, was this passion that I had, growing up at the track. And the driver the team owner who my grandfather raced for at the time, he had a go-kart track on his property where he lived. And one of the 4th of July weekends, before I was actually racing at the time, he had just kind of like paved this go-kart track on his property and bought some go-karts. And, I drove them, and I felt like a natural, right? And, I think my parents had noticed just that, I was looking good out there, and, we're thinking, hey, he's probably getting to go-kart age. At this time I was 14, right? It wasn't quite in go-karts yet, but, it was like, hey, he picked that up pretty well, kind of getting to that age where, if he wants to start racing, it makes sense to do it. And so, yeah, they got me a go-kart, and then I started racing in 2018 when I was 15. And from there, the success started coming in. I won the Wisconsin State Championship in 2021.
Hell yeah, bro!
And
Congrats.
then, thank you. And then that year, it
Oh
was
man.
time to move up into the car racing. And my father had raced different forms of Mazdas, whether it's an RX-8 or like a Protege back in the day. And he had kind of shown me the great, support that Mazda provides, not only with like the scholarship stuff and kind of the scouting the younger talent, but just what they do to give back to like grassroots drivers that are kind of at that amateur level. The support is really unmatched. They're so involved with the drivers, and making sure that basically everyone is like a satisfied customer racing a Mazda on track. There's a saying that more people race a Mazda on any given weekend than any other manufacturer. And it really comes down to like it really comes down to just the way that they treat, you know, their drivers and the support that they have. And so when it was kind of time to move up into cars, you know, that made the most sense because, you know, there's obviously this scholarship path, but it's also just a very supportive program and they're very involved. And so being a part of Mazda Motorsports and making the jump into Spec Miata made the most sense. It's where a lot of the, you know, greats of today have started, was in Spec Miata. It's a very popular class. It's in the NA and the NB version of the Miatas. So, you know, pushing like 30 years old at this point, the cars are, but it's, as a result, you know, pretty affordable and it's very spec. So the cars are built almost identical. And so it really comes down to driver skill and you end up having, you know, relatively affordable cars, lots of drivers that are aspiring to go somewhere or want to be the best that they can be. And so you get competitive fields, you know, like I mentioned, 60 cars, 70 cars. And so, yeah, hopped in Spec Miata and moved on from karting then. And like I said, set the track record at Road America in Spec Miata and then moved into Spec MX5, which is the NC
Wow.
version of the Miata. If you were to go on iRacing and you were to scroll down the car list and go to the legacy cars, it's the older version of the MX5. That's what I race right now. It's like the 2015 model.
I'm going to check that one out. Yeah.
So, yeah, so
As
that's
soon
the
as we
exact
get off
car.
here.
Yeah, of course. So that's the exact car that I race now with Spec MX5. So, you know, for me, it was basically just about, you know, proving that I can succeed. It started in karting, right? Proving that I can succeed, you know, started, you know, state championship, won some track championships as well. And then it's like, hey, you know, it's time to start, you know, seeking support to kind of move up the ranks. And so, you know, my parents were involved, but also, you know, I partnered with a previous guest on your show, Ready Set Sim, right? And other partners
Yep.
along
Shout
the
out
way
to
that
Ian
have,
Stroman,
yeah, yeah.
RSS.
And,
Friend of
you
the
know,
show.
partnered with people along the way that have, you know, really gotten behind my mission and also, you know, have resonated with me and, you know, my journey, like we've been talking about. And, you know, personally, I like to kind of think of myself as an advocate for like the sim to reality pathway. You know, as we talked about, I started on the sim. It taught me so much. All the skills I learned translate into real life racing. And I was able to become successful relatively quick, pick things up right away due to sim racing. And I think nowadays it's becoming even more prevalent. There's competitions that let you race in real life at this point, right? Like it's becoming so you know, widely acknowledged now that sim racing can be a viable path to, you know, either,
100%.
whether it's directly into real racing or even just a way to hone your skills before you get the chance to hop in a real race car. So, you know, as someone who advocates for that, I think, you know, a lot of people have resonated with my mission and I've been able to, you know, garner support along the way to help myself, you know, progress up through the ranks. And, you know, for next year, I have my sights set on the IMSA ranks and to make my, you know, pro racing debut for next year.
Hell
But,
yeah,
you know,
bro.
that's in the works. And so that's kind of been my journey and that's kind of how it came to be, you know, where it is now. But if we talk about, you know, iRacing and how it helps me in real life, I think it goes both ways. It has helped me a lot, as we talked about before. It helps me a lot with learning racecraft. Certain scenarios, like I'll have a battle in real life that is completely identical to something that happened on the sim, and it plays out the same way. Like because of the fact that the people you're racing are real people, and the racing is authentic, and you know drivers aren't lagging all over the place like on the
They're not disappearing or flying. You know
yeah
how
yeah
they
yeah
fly
it's
in the sim
yeah it's like
sometimes?
the racing is virtual as far as like the cars and the tracks, but the actual product of what you're doing is so real. And so, you know, for me, it has taught me a lot about racecraft and, you know, handling the pressure of high intensity real life scenarios because, you know, to a degree, some races for me on iRacing are kind of pressure heavy, like gotta get the pole or gotta perform or
You got to
gotta
get the
try to
pole,
hang on to the
bro.
lead. Right, for sure. So like,
You got to get
you know,
the.
got to be consistent when people are breathing down your neck, like all that stuff, right? Like I've learned so much from, again, repeated races, but also just being put in those scenarios that translate to real life. I will say this: vehicle dynamics, and I mean, this could be limited by the fact that I've just been on Logitech and like a desk setup, so it's maybe not so one to one, right? But for me, you know, I think it depends what you want to get out of it because I know real life racers that use the sim as like a training tool to like learn a track, obviously, like I do that too, you know, learn a track I haven't been to, but also they use it as a way to maybe make it more of a training tool versus like uh, a simulator for like what it is. Because for me, I think at a certain point when I realized, you know, I was trying to become respectable in sim racing, there's just certain things with the nature of like a simulator that can't be perfect versus real life. There's just certain things that you have to do in iRacing to really, get that last little bit of speed. And sometimes it's defying physics, or like doing some sort of crazy line that wouldn't work in real life because the curbs are like scanned differently, or certain things aren't simulated like they would happen in real life. Just, things like that. And I think sometimes that can upset people that are, real life racers switching to sim racing, and they're like, oh, that wouldn't happen in real life. That's frustrating. I think at a certain point for me, I had to disconnect myself from like, hey, this is the sim and this is real life. And some of the stuff I learned on the sim as far as, racecraft and, thinking and positioning and things like that, that translates to real life. But in
And the
certain
track
cars,
too, the track should
for sure.
translate.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. But sometimes with the vehicle dynamics and some of the things you have to do to be, fast in the sim, I think you kind of have to disconnect it from like its real life counterpart sometimes, or even in like open setup stuff when you're tuning the setup. Some of the stuff you do on the sim to make a
I
fast sim
agree.
setup wouldn't
Hmm.
work in real life. So there's a few things, but also it depends what you want to get out of it, right? Like for me, I take them as two different things. I want to be good in the sim, and so I realize that, hey, I'm gonna be cognizant of the fact that this stuff might not necessarily work in real life, but it's what works in the sim, and that's what it is. But if you want to use it as a training tool, maybe you race with a realistic setup that mimics your exact real life setup, or something where you're not necessarily trying to be the best iRacing driver you can be. You want it to be a trainer for real life. So I think it goes both ways. But 100% to recap, yeah, for sure. Learning tracks that I've never been to, obviously laser scan down to the millimeter, like those are always perfect. Hopping into them for real life, and then all the racecraft scenarios and racing lines, and the things that don't so much depend on like the car physics, but more so like just racing principles. And those things, iRacing is great for hitting home. But who's to say I won't become more immersed or feel more of that one-to-one connection when I hop on this new VRS simulator. And so only time will tell in that regard.
Okay. All
Well, I
right.
can't.
Well,
That's an awesome response. It just great feedback for everybody. Real racers and sim racers. But then I'm super curious to see what you think about your once you get some seat time in the new rig.
I mean, I honestly think that I don't know. I have a lot of respect that you actually mentioned what you just mentioned about it there being certain things that you can get away with on the sim and being realistic about it. And you can't do that on the track. And there's a lot of things, or vice versa, right? Because the tire model in iRacing is not perfect either. It's currently the best we have, in my opinion. Um, but it's not one to one. It's not perfect. Um, I think either way, you're gaining, bro. Because if you've never been to a track, you can always run iRacing and see where get an idea where the breaking points are or how the track bends, and then when you go to it, it's not a surprise. You know what I
For
mean? I
sure, for
guess.
sure, yeah. And at the end of the day, like you said, it's not perfect. Like it's super accurate and it's great for what it is. And it's the main sim that I've raced on ever, right? Like I've dabbled in others, but there's a reason that I stick to iRacing, and it's because just the end product that we experience is, in my opinion, second to none. And so it's amazing, but it is not perfect. And so yeah, it's just certain things, like you said, don't always correlate, but that's just the nature of it. Just at the end of the day, it's an online simulator that doesn't necessarily always replicate real life, but they try their best and they do a very good job, but certain things just don't quite add up, and you just have to take that into account when you're considering what you want to get out of it.
Okay. And I do have like kind of like a bonus question here. Um, is iRacing like the only sim that you've tried? Because we've only mentioned iRacing here, and I understand you started racing at 11, and then you moved over to karting, and then you got into the pro driving. But have you ever had like I don't know, like have you ever tried the other sims like ACC, AMS,
So,
too, or yeah?
so I did normal Assetto Corsa, try that out a little
Oh
bit,
yeah,
and did
AC.
some race room as well. I think for me, on top of the fact that iRacing just has such a popular user base, and you can always get in a race with somebody. Like that was the thing with race room, like it follows a similar like rating system, and you kind of have something that you're working towards, but at the same time, you're lucky to be in a race with three people on the whole service if you're lucky. So for me, that wasn't the most enticing. And Assetto Corsa, man, just I've had some bad experiences just doing those races. Like, everyone piles into turn one Monza in F1 car, and it's something like that. Like, I don't know, just something about it. Just I tried out other things, and they are what they are. But it just, for me, I mesh better with iRacing, and I am a competitive person, and I always like having something to kind of strive towards. And I think the fact that the rating system, iRating specifically, I think is something that brings a lot of people in, and myself included. It's like you're always working towards something, and not always. Like, people don't have to be racing for iRating by any means, but it at least attaches something to what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Right. And to me, iRating is kind of like your career, because a lot of people view it as, oh, it's just a number and you're just trying to show off, but it's not. It's a symbolic number that demonstrates what I've been through and what I'm striving for, and that's something that no other sim really has. I mean, they don't really have it like that. They'll give you some sort of number, or like a gold, or you know what I mean, some sort of tier 1, tier 2. But iRating is very, very, very punishing when you don't do well, or when you mess something up.
Unapologetically harsh,
dude. You can
per nim.
Just last month, I was a 499 safety rating, and that went all the way down to like a 2.0, and it wasn't technically my fault. But then, like you said before, if I would have thought about things a little differently, maybe I wouldn't have been in that situation to begin with, or invite the situation to happen. So I think that, we're not an iRacing podcast. I've always said it. It just happens to be the best option in my opinion right now, for someone that wants to be competitive, wants to have fun, and wants to learn skills that translate in real life and to other sims as well, not just real life. So I think we got one more for you, Cam. I don't want to let you go. This is awesome.
The feedback has been unprecedented, right?
Yeah.
Of just how to look at your officials. So, Cam, to close it up here, we ask a lot of our guests here this, because we're very, sim racing is near and dear to our heart. But where do you see, for somebody that's been in it far longer than I have, where do you see sim racing going in the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, before I answer where sim racing is going, let me just plug in my laptop, because that's where I'm going for the moment. All right, so we got that in, and now...
Wait a minute. Is this the same laptop from a 28? What was it when you was 11? Is this the
2011 or something?
It is not the same one. No, we're on
you should have had that in a trophy cage or something like
honestly,
that.
It should be at iRacing headquarters.
Yeah, or the Logitech wheel that I've been running on for however many years.
Right next to it, like the cup right next to it.
That should be at iRacing headquarters. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So where do I see sim racing? So I think it's just going to continue to grow in popularity. Maybe some more titles enter into the sim industry, right, and kind of get involved, and drivers want to give it a try. But I see it just continuing to grow in popularity, and people continuing to give it, the respect it deserves, as a way to grow your skill set, whether you want to become a real life driver or not. It's a great way to just become a better driver, and, learn so many great things and meet amazing people. Like, a lot of the people that I've met that have maybe gone on to be, real life competitors one day or the other. Like, maybe I met them first on the sim, or just some of my best friends that I talk to the most frequently are through the sim. And that, I'm sure we can all relate to that, right? Like, it's a great place to learn and continue to build a community and find, like-minded people. And so I think, through, we've got the Sim Gaming Expo in Chicago, and, just more expos taking. I know the the Sim Racing Expo is coming to Charlotte next year as well. Like, the expansion of touch points for people to become interested in a range of demographics is going to just continue to help sim racing grow, and just get more people involved. And just, if you're someone looking to get into real racing, or you maybe can't, but you want to because you have the passion, but maybe not the funding or the means to do it. Maybe you're in a place where there's no racetracks local to you. Like, there's going to be avenues aplenty coming very, very soon. And so I think it's just going to be something where it continues to grow, and it continues to kind of manifest itself into its real life counterpart in a way. And whether that's what you want to get out of it or not. I mean, there's still going to be so many great opportunities as this series continues to grow, maybe more competitions or more people that just share the passion. And so, yeah, I just think, just a growth in popularity totally. And just so many more great things to come, more products, like you mentioned. We've gotten a lot of gear since the COVID spike, and it's just going to keep growing like that. And people are going to get closer and closer to realism as well. I think that's something that we can't shy away from. There's been so many different
I can't wait to see your reaction, dude. You better make a video and just post it. When you first put your hands on a direct drive, maybe some active pedals, maybe some motion. I don't know. Yeah. I will follow up with your closing thoughts here on the where the hobby is headed. And I always like to say that it's kind of unfortunate that it took this long for sim racing to develop itself, because think about the many talents that that didn't have the means to go karting or racing and anything like that. And just think about how many legends we let go because racing is so locked down, closed down. I mean, this is the Chicane podcast, and Lance Stroll, he shouldn't be racing, man. I'll tell you, Jeff. Lance Stroll, come on, man.
How many Lewis Hamilton slipped through the cracks, or they could have been racing if they had,
Totally, yeah. I've heard that saying quite a bit. Like, the next Lewis Hamilton will not ever be able to actually race, or someone better than Max Verstappen will never have the chance to actually race because they haven't had the means. And so I think sim racing gives people the means, whether they end up.
I mean, that's what I was alluding to with Lance, because Lance is a a millionaire, right? With his dad and everything.
His dad's a gajillionaire, yeah.
Yeah. So then, what is it to the underdog that's probably faster than all of them but can't afford it? And now we're finally at a spot. Finally in a time frame where people are starting to take it serious, and they're not looking at it as a game. They're looking at it as a sim. Yeah. So, and you guys totally missed my joke on Lance Stroll. It was a bash to him, but it's okay.
Oh, I got it. It's got to be embarrassing for that guy to even walk through the F2 pits with all those dudes would mop him. I don't know if that's accurate, but
no, we don't. Yeah, we're just kidding. So
yeah.
Anyway. Cam, wow, what a hell of a story, dude. I got a lot of respect for your persona too. I think your head's in the right place. I think you're gonna do great things with the IMSA thing and the pro thing, and I think that you're on your way, dude. Honestly, you've had a steady incline in your career. As you told the story, it's been nothing but a steady incline. I mean, it's amazing. I love hearing stories. This is the best. These are my favorite shows of the podcast. And this is kind of why the podcast exists. It's the many people we've met on the show, the many friends we've made on the show. And when we went to the Sim Gaming Expo, we all got to get together, and it was amazing. It was like a family over there. I'm not trying to go pro just yet.
Can I add?
But go ahead, Jeff. Yeah, go ahead.
I think we used a term on the last show, talking about how we went to the Sim Gaming Expo, and then at night we went to the sim racing bar. We throw out the term sickos. Just that those that can't get enough. In the nicest way possible. Cam, a dude that grinds it out in the sim, and then on the weekend goes out and races the same car on the racetrack, dude. In the nicest way possible, you're a sicko.
You're a sicko, bro. You're one of us.
I'll take that as a yeah.
Okay, you should. Yes,
you're one of us. You're one of us.
Yeah.
And before
we're
the show,
one of you.
Yeah. No, we're not, bro. We're not nowhere near 10K, bro. I don't know. This guy's alien status. First alien on the show. That's how it is.
Yeah.
But we were talking earlier before we started the interview, before the podcast. And I was like, man, you should have went to Chicago. I know you couldn't make it, but it's George has big plans for next year, so maybe we can do something next year. But Potato Nation, shout out again to LD, Lawrence De Souza and his squad of Potato Nation. They showed up to the sim racing bar, and that's what we were racing was MX5s on the Nürburgring, and we were streaming it all over the place. Good thing you weren't there, because you probably would have. I know.
Would have mopped them.
He would be like, "Oh, you guys race MX5s, huh? Okay."
He'd be out there like, hey.
Oh, okay. I think I know.
Oh yeah, hey.
I think I know
okay,
that car. Yeah, that's car.
Hey, maybe next year, guys. You know, we'll see what
Hopefully
happens.
so, buddy.
Yeah,
We wish you
Hell
the
yeah,
best.
bro.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate all the kind words and the chance to share my platform and share what my journey has been
100%,
and
dude.
what I stand for. And I love to be a part of this. So yeah, thank you guys so much.
You're a good
thank
dude,
you.
man. We wish you the absolute best.
Hell
Awesome.
yeah,
Thank
man.
you,
So
guys.
that's gonna conclude our interview. I don't think we have any follow-ons after this. So Jeff, any final words
All
before
I
we let
got
him go?
is, I think Cam, lives this, but drive fast and brake late, everybody.
There you go. All right, Cam. Yeah, man. Huge fan. Fellow RSS ambassador, promoter, creator. All the above. I think that yeah, man. I want to see you succeed. I want you to continue to succeed, and everybody. I'll leave links to all Cam's social media. Go ahead and support them. Go ahead and check them out. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to have another real life driver and give your opinion. Your opinion means a lot to the Chicane podcast, because the Chicane podcast is for the sim racer, the community. Doesn't matter if you're high end, doesn't matter if you're low budget, doesn't matter what. And we have proof here of someone using a G29 and probably smoked me on track with a SimuCube. So, and with that, thank you so much, everybody. And Cam, again, highly regarded here, high regards here. So thank you so much for giving us the time. The honor is all ours. And to all you viewers and listeners out there, have a great start of your week. Thank you.